always said I was spoiled and irresponsible, especially when it came to the operation of motor vehicles. If he'd only put that new 1984 red BMW in our driveway for my 16th birthday, like I was fully expecting, I wouldn't have written this factual account. Instead, I found a rusted-out 1974 Mercury Montego, which had to be the largest two-door car ever built. In place of my BMW's big shiny ribbon, there was a strip of silver duct tape holding the Montego's vinyl roof together. And worst of all, I didn't even get the pink slip. He just granted me the great honor of driving that motorized turd. According to Dad, it had been a state-of-the-art vehicle when it came out, and she was loaded with bells and whistles. Unfortunately, most of them had stopped dinging and tooting long before I got one. The power antenna was stuck at half-mast, and by 84, the 8-track tape player was useless. The power windows worked, on the way down anyway. But once they hit bottom, they would dislodge and fall into the door frame. This wasn't so bad in the 95-degree New Jersey summers, especially since the air conditioning was inoperable. But the 20-degree winters, it got a little unpleasant. Taking off the door panels was a big job, so I just scotch-taped a note on the window warning the passenger not to touch. I'm not sure what passed for a bell and whistle in 74, but the self-removing muffler seemed really impractical. It would fall off about once a week, and after my father ordered me to go find it, I'd be forced to crawl underneath and reattach it. For some reason, the pipe coming out of the muffler and the one running under the car were about 2 inches short of connecting. My father had seen some car show where they cut a soup can lengthwise and used it to bridge the gap. So between 84 and 87, it's safe to say Campbell saw a sharp spike in their soup sales along the Central Jersey shore. With bald tires and no suspension to speak of, she rode only about 6 inches off the ground, which I think made me the unintentional inventor of the lowrider. Night driving was cool because she routinely bottomed out and sent a rooster tail of sparks off. The sun had burned almost all the paint off the hood, but if you squinted real hard, it sort of looked like the Pontiac Firebird symbol. In fact, the sun had damaged so many spots along her exterior that she really resembled a rolling Rorschach test. It was like driving a big can of hot chick repellent. Living with my divorced airline pilot father, I was quite accustomed to being home alone for long periods of time. Such was the case when I drove over the Little Manasquan Bridge and the Montego got 3 flat tires at one time. It was the last weekend of summer 1987, and I was slated to begin college in a little over 3 weeks. I was on my way to an end-of-summer bash, so I did what any responsible 18-year-old high school graduate would do. I pulled into a real estate office, and I left her there. To be honest, I didn't really think much about it until my father returned home 3 weeks later and asked where she was. At a friend's house, I lied. I'll go get it. To my great surprise, the real estate office didn't think it would be good for business to have my rusted-out heap in front of their building. Now, my dad is a very frugal man, so he wasn't nearly as upset about my lie as he was about the $10 he had to pay for each day it was impounded and the cost of the 3 new tires. When he said to follow him straight home, I just kept my mouth shut and I followed. Always being a fast driver, he'd gotten a pretty good lead on me when the black acrid smoke started billowing out from under my hood. Quickly turning into a gas station, I hopped out, popped the hood, and upon seeing the flames, I did what any sensible person would do. While hiding behind the building, awaiting the inevitable explosion, I heard what sounded like my father's voice off in the distance. Peering out, I saw his head and arm out the window, and he was flailing away and screaming something. As he pulled in, I realized he was shouting, "You idiot, put that out!" with a generous sprinkling of expletives throughout. Well, I don't know what my father was watching back in the 80s, but on Miami Vice, anytime a car caught fire, the car blew up. So I was very reluctant to follow his instructions. 3 times he threatened my life before I finally grabbed a soapy bucket off the island and threw it on the flames. Now, I'd be the first to admit my father's a pretty smart guy, and he was right. Those flames went out just like he said they would. As he was tying a rope to my bumper, I realized what the term "if looks could kill" meant. Over the next few days, we worked hard on repairing that car. As it turned out, it was a good thing he got those 3 new tires put on, because the tow truck charged less to drag the car to the dump versus having to lift it up. Dad wasn't nearly as happy about the savings as I thought he'd be. And to think that that's just one of my fire-related auto incidents. I can't help but think that all that could have been averted if my father had only purchased me that shiny BMW on my 16th birthday. You know, in hindsight, maybe my father was right about me.